Hello, my name is Hugo Prévost. Welcome to SVGA, your retro PC gaming podcast. With me, as always, Robert Hills. Hello, Robert.
Hello, Hugo. How are you?
I'm fine. A bit of packing these days. I'm moving out in a little bit less than 3 weeks now, so my life is almost entirely in boxes, but otherwise I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm doing better than you are, that's for sure. No
Uh,
boxes to be seen. I hate
no,
moving.
no, I know how you do like packing your stuff in boxes and moving, changing apartments. But yeah, this week we can hear you a little bit better than the last time. I think you splurge out a bit. Is that the right term? Splurge or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if it was quite a splurge. I didn't go all out, but yeah, I figured it was time that people got to hear the full majesty of my voice.
Well, it's going pretty well so far. Yeah, so this is episode 8, of course, of SVGA. What did we play this week, Robert?
This week we played Total Annihilation.
Exactly. This is an old favorite of mine. I remember playing. I mean, I think you played it too before, a long time ago, but I remember playing that game. Oh, God. In what, 20 years ago? I mean, the game came out in 1997. Sorry. This is a real time strategy game, our first RTS on the show. I don't think it will be our last, but I think it's a good one to start. We're maybe going to dabble into some StarCraft or Command and Conquer, some obscure games like that, maybe in a later episode. But yeah, for now, so Total Annihilation, developed by Cave Dog Entertainment, like I said, came out in 1997, made quite a splash at the time. Just talked about StarCraft. I think there was a bit of a competition for a while between Total Annihilation and StarCraft about which one was the better strategy game. I think eventually StarCraft came out on top, but I think it's not exactly for the same reason we could think of. But yeah, so let's take it from the top, shall we? Could you maybe resume us the plot, if there is one, of this game?
I'm it's really hard to put a finger on a plot on this one, but it's there are basically two sides of is warring robots really the best way to put it? Uh, yeah, you build a bunch of metal stuff and you blow each other up, or at least you try.
I think that's quite fair. I mean, there's a story, and here story is used with once again large quotes, as in they talked about there was a difference of opinion between about the transfer of consciousness from man to machine, and it blew up to a war, and then it went full galactic war. And I think they said they have been fighting for 1,000 years, and so everything is destroyed in the galaxy, and all that's left are mere robots. So basically, the point is moot now. I'm guessing it has been moot for a while.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're not looking at a lot of character development in this one.
no, and I think that's why we're going to get into the graphics and the mechanics a little bit later. But I think that's why StarCraft now is more remembered instead of Total Annihilation. It's because in TA, there's not really a story. I mean, there's a progression when you do
Yes.
missions, and there's a lot of them, a lot of missions. But I remember StarCraft being riveting because you follow these characters through the basically 3 campaigns, and there's some interconnecting stuff, and it goes on into usually StarCraft 2 and so on and so on. And in TA, there's no characters. I mean, there's the commander, which is your main unit, but there's no speaking voices, there's no speaking character, there's no character development. You basically, like you said, you build a bunch of metal death machines and you send them to kill or be killed, and you start over again on a new planet or on a new map. So, and this isn't to say that it's not a good game. I think it's an excellent game, but it's on this aspect of game design, it's very, very basic.
Yeah, it's one that I think really focused on mechanics and sort of units. There are so many units, and sort of gameplay and so on. And I think for the reason you say that sort of StarCraft really had that kind of narrative element, and I think in some ways a bit more simplicity,
Yeah.
which maybe kind of helped it in the long run. Because we played this just over the weekend,
Yeah.
which we'll get into in a bit.
Mhm.
But I had forgotten how complex this one was.
Yeah, and I mean, I did play because there's been sequels and spin-offs, and at least I think what two spin-offs. Well, one spin-off with its proper sequel, and really a truer sequel with an expansion, and even another game in the series, if you could call it a series. And it's still, they've simplified the mechanics a lot. If we talked about the latest, the Supreme Commander series, for example, if you talk about Supreme Commander 2, which came out in 2009, they simplified a lot of things compared to Total Annihilation. But still, it's a game. And as much as we can say that StarCraft is a game for people who do 60 actions per minute, or how many actions they do per
Right.
minute, and I'm feeling completely overrun and left behind when I see people playing StarCraft online. But as much as you see people clicking everywhere, there's not, and maybe you're gonna get thrown. I'm gonna get criticized for this, but it's mainly you build stuff, you build units, and there's counters and everything, but you build units and you send them to attack. In Total Annihilation, you have to determine, especially in this game specifically, you have these ways of producing energy. For example, there's two resources, energy and metal, and you have to determine, oh, do I need to build solar collectors, for example? Do I need to build energy production buildings on the water instead of using windmills because there's no wind, or whatever it is? And as much as this diversity of choices is interesting, especially for a game from 1997, it's, you can, if you don't know what you're doing, you can be stuck really, really quickly, and you're going to have a crappy experience.
Well, it's interesting because this is definitely a game that I played. Maybe not when it first came out, but I think I may have bought it used or something, and like a couple years after it came out. And I know I've played hours and hours of this game, and it was only just vaguely familiar when we played this weekend. Like it really doesn't that I remember all of the complexity and stuff, but I have no like specific memories of a particular game when this or that happened. I just know I played it and it happened, but it that complexity and all that stuff never really came back to me.
And I understand the feeling. I've been playing, like I said, I'm a fan of the series, so I've been playing something like Forge Alliance, which is, in my opinion, the best of the series, which came out in 2006. But still, it's very, very complex. Every type of production factory, for example, you can build land units, you can build sea units and air units. And every, for example, in Total Annihilation, there's 2 levels of production for each type of factory, and every type of factory has its own production units, and you can see clearly and quickly how much you have to manage in order to be efficient. I mean, you could just build basic stuff, basic defenses, basic units, and just send wave after wave after wave of units against your enemy. And in the first few missions, it works because they don't give you much to do, to work with. But when you play multiplayer, as we did, like you said last weekend, where I kick your ass, uh,
I mean, yes, you did. Did credit where it's due. I got my ass
but
kicked.
but I mean, I think I've got a lot more practice than you on this type of game. I mean, if we ever play a racing game, for example, you're gonna leave me far behind, I'm sure.
Oh, I
Uh,
sure hope so. Otherwise, it's going to be very embarrassing.
but maybe we could talk about the mechanics because I'm feeling we're getting extremely in little details here, and maybe we're losing people. The thing is, I think the most interesting about Total Annihilation is it takes the terrain into account. If we take example of StarCraft, for example, of course there's two type of terrain. I mean, there's the ground and some elevated parts, but when you play a game of TA, when your unit shoots, your basic robot shoots energy balls or lasers or whatever, it can hit the terrain instead of the enemy. And if your unit is moving, maybe it'll miss. Or but on the other hand, maybe your artillery shell can go over the mountain, for example, or maybe it's going to hit the tree, and the tree is going to catch up on fire, and every unit that passes through the fire is going to get damaged or destroyed. So it seems it seems normal in a way that okay, it's realistic in, in
Yes,
a sort of way.
in its sort of limited way. Yes.
Yeah, but yes, it was at the time for me extremely refreshing and interesting to see. Okay, I have to take everything into account. I mean, you're going to destroy units anyway, but if you get into a firefight, as we did multiple times last weekend,
Yeah, I didn't die all at once. I just want to be clear to anyone listening.
yeah,
It was not an immediate death.
no, it took about what 45 minutes,
Yeah, it took a while. I'll give myself a
and
bit of credit.
and there was a time where our two armies clashed. I mean, a few times, but and 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 then there were so many debris on the field of battle that when we were shooting at each other, the shots were hitting the debris, and debris that can be recycled by your construction units, and then you can debris are made of metal, of course, and then you can use the metal to produce more units. And eventually, if you keep shooting the debris, it's going to disappear. So it's all these little things, like I said, that makes the game great, I think.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of. I mean, I maybe we're overselling the complexity of it or whatever, but there's a lot here to really appreciate as a game that sort of takes itself seriously.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the point where the game can seem too complex is that some things that they simplified over the years after the first game, especially, for example, like I said, in Forged Alliance, it's the interface. It's because the UI is, for example, when you want to use a construction unit to build to help a factory build units faster, you can select a unit, and each time the factory is producing something new, you can just left click on the unit that's being produced, but you'll have to do that every time. If you want just to assign this construction unit to that factory and keep it helping produce stuff, you have to either click on a specific tab on the UI and then select one thing, or know the shortcut on the keyboard. Uh, in Forge Alliance, once again, you just have to right click on that
Right.
factory after having selected the construction. You see where I'm going with this is that you see the way it's constructed, and it's well done for the time, but it's clunky as hell.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, going back to like the debris or whatever, one of the advantages I had was that most of the battles took place near my base. So the advantage for me was that all of the wreckage was there, and I was able to quickly claim metal and build quite quickly. The problem is, to reclaim all that metal, you have to individually reclaim each
Yeah.
piece of wreckage, which was a bit tedious and may have not actually saved me as much as I thought it was doing.
Yeah, because of course, when you're doing that, you're not managing something else, and you eventually have to. Okay, am I being attacked there? Am I building defenses there? Am I building enough units quickly enough? Do I have enough resources coming in? And so eventually it just becomes a numbers game, basically.
Yes.
And I mean, there's a
Yeah, at
way
a
to.
certain point, it's just a zergling rush.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
To
not.
keep talking about that other game.
No, I mean that's okay because it came out about what I think StarCraft came out in '98, and like I said, there's a way to. I mean, of course, StarCraft is in a way is a numbers game because you have to collect crystals and Vespene gas and build more pylons. But yeah, but once again, sorry to keep hammering that point is that there's a place where, especially at the beginning of a match in TA, where everything is slow, everything takes time. We had to speed up the game to. I mean, the fact that you can speed up the game in itself is telling of the way that the game is playing too slow. I don't know. Maybe it was for the computers of that era, but playing on modern PCs, you're twiddling your thumbs. I mean, it takes so much time to do anything at the beginning.
Yes.
And it feels like the game is telling you, oh, this is serious stuff. You cannot rush it. And it's a bit annoying, maybe.
Yeah, I think to some extent. And then and one of the things it kind of does is it sort of lulls you into the idea that it's actually, it's a slow game, and then if you dawdle a bit too much, you may find yourself losing to Hugo quite badly.
It wasn't so bad. I mean,
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, I never did know where your base was, but
the opposite corner of the map. It's.
I mean, yeah, it's. There were only a couple choices.
I want to hear your thoughts on the music because I think it's one of the main selling points of the game.
Yeah, the music is actually quite good, and it's this is something that I think really, especially for that time, really makes a game is when the music is, it's to a certain extent limited because they were only working with so much space, and it never it's orchestrated, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
And so it's complex, it's interesting, and it never felt too repetitive. And I think one of the things we wanted to get to was that the music changes as sort of depending on what's happening. So when you're just sort of building and nothing's going on, it's very calm. Everything's nice. And then, the action happens and it really picks up and it's in your face kind of thing. So it's the music is good.
It's extremely good. It's quite good. It's made by Jeremy Soule, who did the music for the Elder Scrolls series. Well, I think starting from Morrowind and going up. We do have to. I mean, I do want to specify that Mr. Soule has been accused of sexually harassing a coworker. So it's a bit of a gray area. I mean, it's not that we condone anything of the sort, but it's always difficult to talk about something, a cultural product, and to say that this product is good when the person that produced it is, well, basically now a bad person, or in this case, maybe an asshole. I don't know. But yeah, the music is really good. And one fun anecdote that I told you when we played is that, of course, the game came on a CD. The special thing was the first track of the CD was the game, so it was the data for the game, and the rest of the tracks were the music. Sorry, and so you could take, I did this a few times, you could take the game CD and put it in a normal CD player and just skip track one and then listen to the soundtrack as long as you wanted. So in that way, was quite interesting and different. But yeah, the music is really the sound. I think the sound design is good too.
Yeah, no, the sound design was quite good actually. The robots all make, convincing robot shooting noises. I don't know exactly what a robot shooting sounds like, and hopefully we never actually find out. But
Yeah.
give it time, I guess. But it's one of those things that the sound is pretty good.
Yeah, one point I want to mention is I don't know if you've tried the campaign. Maybe not.
I didn't try the campaign this time around, but I do. Again, it's one of those things that I played it, and I know I played it a lot. I just
Yeah. I mean, it's the kind of game where you can mostly do skirmishes and play against the computer, and that'll be all right, because the main game is basically we're limiting you to a few options, and we're maybe twisting the odds into your the favor of your opponent, and you have to get out of this X or Y situation.
right.
But it's quite a long campaign. I mean, there's the version you can buy right now for the game. I mean, you can buy it on Steam. We did play with the GOG version, sorry, which contains the two expansions. I think Core Tactics and the other one I forget.
Battle Tactics and the Core Contingency.
Oh yeah, sorry. So yeah, Battle Tactics and Core Contingency, which are part of the Commander Pack on GOG, and I think the main campaign, it's 24 missions on each side, which is quite a lot. And especially considering that, as I said, the game is starting mission is quite slow, and you need about an hour to do each mission.
Yeah.
So if you want to do every mission on each side, it's about 50 hours. And this is if you don't have to restart. And this is only the main game. So you'll have to sit down quite a while to get through the entire Commander Pack.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if, I don't know that I could sit down now and play a real-time strategy game like that for that amount of time. Like, I know I can put that much time into Hearts of Iron 4, which is complex, but in a very different way.
Yeah.
But this, I don't know. There's something about the build mechanics of dealing with individual sort of like production of single units and the kind of limited AI that it has to sort of, you can't just tell it to do a thing and you're kind of okay. I don't know that I have the patience for that, because a while ago, about a year, I started trying to play Company of Heroes 2.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's in that kind of real-time strategy, a little smaller scale, but that same idea. And it was just, I don't know. I need something a little more. I like the bigger, like more complex, but in some ways more interesting.
Yeah. I see what you mean. And I mean, I tried to play the main campaign on the ARM side. There's the ARM and the Core, which are the two factions. And I discovered what was irritating me is because I'm the kind of player that likes to turtle. I mean, likes to build defenses and then build a huge army and then attack. Right. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to rush. And this may be why I'm not good at StarCraft. And in that game, in Total Annihilation, there's not really a way to protect yourself. I mean, you can build defenses, you can build cannons and laser towers, but
they're not super effective.
There's not super effective, and there's no shields.
Right.
And this is something I really like to build in, for example, Forged Alliance, where I just bunker down under my shields and then build huge guns and huge robots and huge armies and then attack. And in this, you can build the biggest base you want. If there's a couple of units that gets through your defenses and start shooting your metal collectors, for example, you're done. Basically, you're mostly done, basically, because you won't be able to keep up with the production speed or production rhythm or whatever.
Yeah, and once you start to lose that rhythm, you're pretty toast.
Yeah, exactly. So it's in a way you have to basically know what you have to do before you learn it, and it's a bit strange.
Yeah, well, and I think that's kind of one of the limitations of a lot of real-time strategy is I mean, StarCraft is probably the worst example of this, but it requires a lot of sort of just memorization and build order, and then
Yeah.
it becomes less about, thinking through strategy or tactics or whatever, and just going through a checklist as fast as you can.
Yeah, I think you're right on this, but yeah, so playing this after playing like 20 years of real-time strategy games that came out after this and took ideas from this, but let's hope the better ideas instead of everything. And going back to this, I mean, the game is completely playable. You may have some problems if you're playing with two screens, two monitors. I did unplug one to be sure that we wouldn't have any crashes when we played online. Otherwise, I played on my laptop, so basically, of course, one screen only.
Yeah.
And if you try to change the resolution in the campaign, the game may dislike you a lot. But yeah, so if you play on the regular resolution, it's going to be all right, and it's still quite playable, and there's no game breaking bugs, and everything's fine.
Yeah, and we were actually able to, with Game Ranger, play quite easily a multiplayer game.
Yeah, exactly. Game Ranger, which I didn't know existed before we did this, is a free service. I mean, there's a premium version where you can pay to get, I don't know, maybe more features. But basically, what this does is this replace all the old multiplayer
Battle.net,
services.
well, not
Yeah,
Battle.net, but Heat.net and
yeah.
GameSpy and all that sort of stuff.
Everything that died over 10 years or more, 10 years ago or more, this replaces that. So you just have to create an account. It's free. And then you can, you tell the program where your game is. And then it played, without any itch.
I was expecting a bit of trouble, and it was just it opened up right into the window, and then when we finished our game, it closed it down. We're back in Game Range. It was remarkably smooth.
I mean, I did have some problem with Game Ranger itself. You didn't get them, but I had this problem where I had to change permissions for a certain file. I don't know why. I watched a video in, I think, Hungarian on YouTube about how to fix this, and it works. So,
yeah, but I mean, we played a fair number of old games now, and this is the first one we've been able to easily. Well, the first one we've been able to play multiplayer, but the first one that was really like the issues were solvable, and we were able to jump right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And will you recommend Total Annihilation?
Yes, I think I would. It turns out I am not really a fan of real-time strategy anymore. It's just kind of something that I fell out of. But that being said, if you like this kind of game, it holds up well. It's got a lot of units, a lot of complexity. It can be slow, but if you're willing, if you like it, the style of game, and you want to dive back into something a little older, it's totally playable.
Yeah, I would recommend it too. I mean, like we said, there's some stuff that we don't like anymore. Like you said, it's quite slow. It can be quite difficult if you play against it depends on the difficulty of the AI, but during the campaign, they can tip the scales in the favor of your opponent quite easily. And so you have to restart a few times. But the music is great. The graphics still hold up. The UI is a bit clunky, but otherwise, it's still everything's good. If and I think it's the scale that gets me in this game, because when you play StarCraft, you have a limit of about 200. It's not even 200 units. It's 200 requisition points or
Yeah,
something like that.
something like that.
And usually there can be a unit taking 2 or 3 or 4 points or whatever, and so you end up having intense fights. But I think I've really rarely seen more than 50 or 60 units going against another group of 50 or 60 units. And in TA, you can have, I mean, we didn't test it exactly for this purpose, but I remember having a firefight with you during that game, and where we each had about that number of units, 50 or 60. But this was at the same time, I had a base with about 50 or 60 buildings, and I think you had something similar too. And I know
Maybe
that the game
25,
was,
but we'll take your compliment.
and I mean the game was rushing a bit because there was so many explosions, but otherwise I'm sure it's quite capable of having 500 units on each side. I don't know what what would happen if there was a firefight between, but I know that for once again for Alliance to go back to that game, there's a limit in the skirmish. There's a limit of 1,000 units per player, and it can be up to 8 players. Of course, the game's going to slow down to a crawl if you're into the end game with 8,000 units and structures on the map. But it will work, and you don't have this anywhere else. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the main selling points. You have to have a huge fight, a huge battle. This is the game to do it.
For sure.
And it's $7.89 right now on GOG. So if you want to try it, I think give it a go. And yeah, it's a way to eventually go up the ladder, if you can call it that, to other games in the series and see, well, does it hold up, and so on.
Yeah, no, I think that's really who it's for.
Robert, thank you very much for being here for that 8th episode. Thank you, of course, to our listeners who are here right now with us. You can find all the previous episodes on pieuvre.ca. We're also on SoundCloud and on every platform where you can find your podcast. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.